Back here on Radio Row, it is Super Bowl 47 between the Baltimore Ravens and the San Francisco 49ers, and we're now joined by Hall of Famer Kellen Winslow. Kellen, Zach Gelb here. How are you?
I'm doing well. Can't complain.
Well, it's great to be here in New Orleans. You get any good food last night in New Orleans?
The food here is terrible.
You think so?
It's just terrible. The terrible thing about the food here is that you have to choose. You can't have it all in one sitting. You got to choose. I'm going to do shrimp tonight. I'm going to do fish the next night.
Some crab meat.
I'm going to do oysters. I'm going to do crab meat. Do I want it fried? Do I want it blackened? Do I want it grilled? I had a lobster last night that was to die for. A grilled lobster. It was sweet. It was good.
How many days have you been here?
It seems like 4, but I think it's only been 2.
Best place you ate at so far?
Drago's.
Ooh.
Yeah.
You got to try Irene's Cuisine tonight.
Irene's Cuisine.
Warren Moon was there last night. It was excellent. And you got to get some crab meat, some steak. They have a nice 8-ounce steak. It's little for big guys like us, but it does the job.
Right, not much into the red meat anymore, but yeah, I like the seafood. I really do.
So now take me through your emotions, because you're a Hall of Famer. You got inducted in 95. You had to wait a little bit. But what's that emotions the day leading up on Saturday when you're waiting to find out if you're getting in the Hall of Fame?
God, it was so long ago. Where was I? It was the Chargers were in a Super Bowl in Miami. I was at the Fontainebleau Hilton having breakfast with 2 very good friends of mine, Adriana Zamat, who worked at the Fontainebleau, and a good friend of mine, Ben Tator, from the Walter Camp Football Foundation. I got the phone call that I'd been voted in, and it was a very emotional moment in a very public restaurant for the 3 of us when I got that news. Leading up to it, it's, you try to find something to do to keep yourself busy. It's pretty much like the day you get drafted. You're just waiting for that phone call. You wonder if it's going to come, if it's going to come, when it's going to come, where you're going to end up going. It's really a big, big moment in your life. And then, of course, it's the disappointment when you don't get that phone call. So it's a roller coaster of emotions.
What advice would you give to guys that don't get in this week and then have to wait a little bit? Guys that have the credentials but just don't get in this time.
Oh, boy, what can I say? I really don't know. Because when, find something else to do. Stay focused. Surround yourself with family. It's not the end of the world. It's eventually going to happen.
I was talking to Mike Haynes yesterday, and he said he was in awe when he didn't get in the first time.
Is Mike Haynes in the Hall of Fame?
Yes, he is.
When did he get in?
I think he got in his second year of eligibility in the late 90s.
We should talk about that, because he doesn't deserve it.
You don't think he deserves it? Well, there's a lot of guys that are not in the Hall of Fame that deserve to be in. One being Jerry Kramer. There's a bunch of coaches that aren't.
There's a lot.
Bill Parcells not in the Hall of Fame?
Well, because they're afraid he might come back and take another job.
Yeah, but he has to be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, he does. Don Coryell deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. And by the way, Mike Haynes, if anybody deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, Mike Haynes deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. I was just kidding about that. Mike's a good friend and just a great player. I have a great deal of respect for him. But for Don Coryell not to be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame it's really unjust.
Do you think that players that get in the Hall of Fame, should they have a vote?
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt. A lot of people who do have votes will call players and say, what do you think about this guy? What do you think about this guy, et cetera, et cetera. And I've gotten a few of those phone calls. But, sometimes it doesn't turn out the way you wanted to. But, of course I'm biased because my head coach, Don Coryell, is not there. And I think he should be, because he's really changed the game of football.
You were an NFL great. I didn't get to see you play, but all the films that I've watched you play, it says that you were a great
in black and
end.
white, yeah.
To me. Do you think you should have been a first ballot Hall of Famer?
I don't think it matters. Of course I did at the time, but in hindsight, with age and maturity comes the fact that it's such a great honor. How can you look back and say this should have happened or whatever? You're just grateful for the honor, and this really has changed my life, and I'm thankful to be there.
We're talking to Chargers great Kellen Winslow. And Kellen, let's get to this. The Chargers have a new man in town, and that's going to be Mike McCoy. What are your first impressions with him?
Know nothing about him.
Nothing?
Know nothing about him.
Well, he's an offensive genius. He came in over from Denver, had Tebow and
no, nothing against him. It's just the fact that as far as professional sports is concerned, 9 years ago, my son got drafted into the National Football League. I became a father. Mm-hmm. So I look at the game as a point of where he was, what he was doing, et cetera, et cetera. The rest was pretty much a blur. Really didn't. I got out of broadcasting and professional sports and college football. So really look at it as a fan from the outside. So when you ask me about a guy who got a job in San Diego, honestly, I can't comment on him because I don't know him.
Do you watch a lot of football today at all or no?
No, not really.
But you're familiar with the Vernon Davises, the Rob Gronkowskis.
Oh, of course, of course.
What do you think about the tight end position today?
It hasn't changed. It's just being used more. The tight end is going to be the most intelligent guy on the field, sometimes second to the quarterback, sometimes way above the quarterback, depending what team you're on. They're going to be the best athlete on the field because they're asked to do so many different things. And in some cases, they're going to be the better looking one, except for maybe in the Gronkowski situation.
Well, one NFL Hall of Famer who will be a Hall of Famer eventually, that's Tony Gonzalez. He just retired. A quick thought about Tony Gonzalez?
Well, he hasn't officially. Has he officially retired?
He keeps on saying that he's going to retire.
Yeah, Tony will be a first ballot inductee to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He deserves it. He's had a great career, and it's had a great impact on the game. There's no doubt about that.
When you retired, what was the toughest part about making that transition from going to a player to then just sitting back and being a regular person?
For me, it was totally different because I played 1 year of high school football. I didn't grow up being the football star, the blue chipper. I was the 29th or 28th scholarship of 30 offered at the University of Missouri. Just got better within the game. I was doing things beforehand. I think players who this has been their entire life and don't have a sense of self have more difficulty in that transition. Yes, it was difficult because you had taken me away from my teammates. That was the difficult part.
And it's very important to keep your health in check because it's a very demanding game.
You got to take care of yourself. But again, if you take the things that you learned in the game and you apply them to the things that you're doing now, you really have a competitive advantage over those that you're competing against in what I call the afterlife of sports. And I did that. I took the things that I learned in athletics, perseverance, dedication, sacrifice, and I applied those things to the things I was trying to do, and it's worked out okay.
And now you're involved with the Fourth and Goal Foundation. Tell me a little bit about that.
Fourth and Goal, Zimmer Orthopedics is all about trying to get people more aware of this condition called arthritis and the different levels of it and educating people about it. In the case of Fourth and Goal, they're really focused on retired players. And one thing that happens with athletes is that we don't talk to each other, we talk at each other. Hey, how you doing, man? How's the family? Yeah, good. Well, have you seen such and such? And it pretty much dies after that. But what Bruce Laird and Burt Jones have done by starting this foundation is provide a vehicle to have a conversation about joint pain, arthritic pain, et cetera, and getting information out to players about how you can go and have this dealt with. And Zimmer Orthopedics has come in, the new technology as it relates to knee replacement, shoulder replacement, whatever it is, hip replacement, and the materials that they're using is so far advanced than what they used to be, and the techniques are less invasive. So it's not wise just sit there and suffer. The wise thing to do is to speak up, to get in contact with people, to share what you're going through so you can get the proper help that you need.
We always hear about when a player retires, his post-career injuries and everything that happened, how many concussions he suffered, all the arthritis that he now has. Do you think it'd be a mistake if the NFL ended up going to 18 games?
No, not necessarily. Think about it. It's not I played 14 years of organized football, tackle football. One of those were in high school. 4 were in college, 9 was in the National Football League. If you start playing tackle football when you're 6 years old and you go from one level to the next and you're fortunate enough to go to the pro level, that's wear and tear. So when they talk about concussions, the conversation I already have is why are the plaintiffs' attorneys just suing the National Football League? It's a cumulative effect. So really you might want to sue their youth football organization or their youth football coach. It's a cumulative thing that you have to really go back and think about. This is wear and tear over the course of time. Take Junior Seau, for example. Junior probably played maybe 8 years of organized football before he played 3 years at USC. That's 11 years total right there before he gets into the pros. Then he does 20 years in the pros. That's 31 years of impact.
Were you ever hesitant about letting your son play football?
I didn't let my son play tackle football until he was 14.
Did he come to you and say, I want to play football? Or
yeah,
was it like, let's go play football or something?
Of course.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he did. But as a parent, that's my responsibility. And more parents have to make that decision of whether or not they let their child play tackle football or not, or the injuries of it. But we've got to do a better job of training and giving direction to youth coaches who start the bad habits early, and then those guys who keep going from one level to the next get to the pros, and they have bad habits that are ingrained in them. And then, of course, we throw a flag when they do what they naturally are taught to be done, taught to have been done for a very long time. You know what I mean? But so you got to get back to youth football and do a better job of training those coaches who teach our kids.
Folks, it's Fourth and Goal Foundation. Kellen Winslow, the Hall of Famer. Thanks so much for coming on. I appreciate the time.
You bet.